am I alone for just feeling kind of frustrated and not having a ton of betting interest? Or maybe I'm just being lazy and don't want to do a ton of research on these backups. But it kind of reminds me of the handicapping these bowl games. It's like, oh man, there is a lot to unpack here.
There is, but I think that's okay though, because I think that's why markets are probably a little bit less efficient for the final week of the regular season, in that we don't know what these backup quarterbacks are going to be able to do. I mean, we've done power rankings for backups, every now and again on this program, and I think you and I have had spirited debates about what this means and how to figure
Hmm.
out who's good and who's bad, and sometimes we're dealing with small sample size theater. So all of these problems kind of come in and turn into this sort of mess that we call the season finale. Yet at the same time, I also am firmly convinced that we do overreact to backup quarterbacks. Like Blaine Gabbert is probably a really good example where you go, okay, well, look at this Chiefs offense with these wide receivers who continue to drop passes. That may continue, or they may run the football a little bit more, and maybe they're almost just as efficient doing that than they are trying to pass to the intermediate parts of the field where it will be a drop of some kind or some sort of mishandling. So I look at this and I go, whatever your priors are for some of these teams, it's probably okay to stick with them, right?
Well, well, look, like we're at week 18. So I would say week 16 and week 17, and this is just about every year, it is the most efficient market. Like the NFL is probably the most efficient market there is, period. And now, once you have a
Hmm.
full sample size of a season, now it's even tougher. So I think this actually creates some opportunity. Is there a bit of a
Hmm.
guessing game? Absolutely. But these lines are going haywire, and we're going to see more line movement as well. Like some people weren't expecting the Rams to announce what they did yesterday. And, their spot isn't set, but they come out yesterday. Yeah, Stafford ain't playing. Kyron Williams ain't playing. Cooper Kupp's out. Aaron Donald's out. Like a lot of these teams that we're talking about, I think are going to handle it similarly, but the Rams are
Hmm.
just willing to come out and say it. Like some of the narratives that I was hearing, oh, it's a little brother. He really wants to beat Shanahan. No, he doesn't. He doesn't give a damn about this game. Like you want to win every time you're on the field. I mean, just Aaron, it's like a wide range of opinions too, which is why I think there could be opportunity. Like I heard someone say, "Oh, there's not that much of a difference between Lamar and Huntley." Like we could go too far the other way too. Like this guy's about to win his second MVP, and there's not much of a difference between him and a backup. Are you kidding me?
One game that I don't think we would be talking about all that much, but when it comes to incentives, maybe there is a reason to bring it up, would be the Chiefs and the Chargers. And Chris Jones needs half a sack to earn more than $1 million. Austin Eckler needs 110 total yards to cash in on a $100,000 bonus. So, do either of these tidbits make a whole lot of sense as far as backing them in the prop market?
Chris Jones one's interesting. I always feel like we don't get enough value on the sacks. This is a guy that, he was holding out at one point in the offseason. That's a significant amount of money. Like a lot of
Mhm.
these incentives that we're going to talk about, and I know Chris Jones has made some bank in his career, but a lot of them are 100K, 200K, somewhere in that range. $1.25 million for a half a sack. That even for a celebrity, even for a professional athlete, that's a ton of money. And he had a lot of pressures in the first game against the Chargers, and now it's Easton Stick. I think Chris Jones is going to be out there. Andy Reid, player's guy. He's going to want him to get paid, especially after the way it started in the offseason with those conversations. And here's another guy,
Hmm.
Eckler. We all expect this to be Eckler's last game in a Chargers uniform. And
Mhm.
it's meaningless for both teams. 110 yards, 100K. Yeah, I do think both teams are going to, especially like it's the interim guy. Like, doesn't he want the players to be happy? I would think so. So I think they're both going to get it.
I like your process more with like the Chris Jones and it being more significant with the 1.25 million compared to 100K. I don't know, when you already make a lot of money, I guess 100K means a lot. It's hard for me to know. I don't make millions and millions of dollars a year, but I like the Chris Jones one a lot more than
But
Eckler.
Eckler might just get one more contract, right? He's a running back, you
Right.
know? It just might be
Just
one
kick
more
the can
deal
down the road with him.
and he's
That is a
done. Yeah.
How
possibility.
many yards does he need again?
110
100
total.
total, which is
Yeah.
He had
kinda normal for him.
117 once.
Mm-hmm.
Between
Week
rushing
18
and
can be a
receiving?
little bit.
Oh, it's rushing plus receiving. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
total.
yeah.
Never
110
mind.
total. So
Yeah. 2, 3, 4.
And don't you think he just goes to the coach and he's like,
4.
"Hey
He's
man,
had it
just
4
ride
times.
me till my legs fall off. Like
Yeah.
I want that money
Yeah.
today. Like I'm on the back
Yes.
9."
right.
And no,
Watch him get
this situation
injured.
now, no Keenan, no Palmer, right? And of course, Mike
Mhm.
Williams been out all year. Like, it's all through him. Here's another
Yes,
one
I did.
where it is a monster. They need help to get in. Last I saw was like 27% chance that they're going to get in, but a win and a Green Bay loss, which, by the way, field goal point spread against a Bears team trending way up, playing their best ball for like 8 games now. Very possible. And Seattle's favored, and Green Bay lose, but that's another 3-point game. If the Seahawks make the playoffs, Geno gets $2 million. I'd imagine that he would spread the wealth too, right? Like,
Mhm.
he got his big contract, his guaranteed money, and $2 more million. And we get to go against the worst defense in the NFL, even worse than Washington. Boy, this has made me think about Seattle -3, guys.
Week 18 is the most underrated event, in quotation marks, in all of professional sports. Week 18 is the most underrated because we have expectations that teams playing for something will beat teams playing for nothing, and it doesn't
Mhm.
always work out that way. And we are always surprised by this, and it makes week 18 oh so much fun. So, what I did was I looked at the last 10 seasons and I looked at that season finale week and focused on just games between one team with playoff motivation going up against a team with no playoff motivation. And when I filtered out everything else, and I also looked at times when the contender was favored and by the record, the better team. So, two sort of filters here, looking at a team with playoff motivation going up against a team without playoff motivation, and one team contending with a better record and is indeed the favorite. So when I did that, I came up with 86 games over the course of the last decade. So
Okay.
against the spread in these 86 games, the favorites were 41, 43, and 2. So these were very sharp numbers. In other words, you simply cannot side with a team with motivation. It is a coin flip. Motivation is already baked into the spread. So it doesn't necessarily matter that you're sort of double counting, right? You shouldn't do that. Motivation is already there, and you need to look for other factors in terms of placing wagers on these games. But to me, I think the bigger story in terms of bigger payouts would involve what you do with, say, money line bets. Outright favorites in these situations were 66 and 20. In other words, we average 2 outright upsets every year by teams with nothing to play for when it comes to being in playoff contention. So now I want to open it up to you guys and look at some of these games where you have a team with playoff motivation going up against a team that is eliminated from the rest of January. We've got the Jaguars at the Titans. We've got the Bucks at Panthers. That line has since moved in Carolina's direction, mind you. The Cowboys at the Commanders, Eagles, another line that's moved at the Giants, and then the Bears at the Packers. So in these 5 games, and of course, the Seahawks Cardinals didn't include that because Seattle does need some help. Steelers need some help as well. And though they are the worst team there, I left it out of this mix. So we're down to really 5 games that kind of fit this description. And if we are to believe that we average 2 games where we have an outright upset, let's say even if it's just 1 this year, which one do you think is the likeliest on this list?
Of that 5, man, I'm bouncing back and forth between 2 games, and I'm going to go with the Bears. I would say the Bears. They are, I know technically that we would say that there isn't motivation. I'm just telling you, as a team that has watched this team up close and personal, and knowing how the organization thinks and how important just the Packers game alone, anytime they play, whether something's on the line or not, how much it means. It's those two games, it's a dumb statement, but I hear it all the time still. Those two games mean more than any other game the rest of the season. Even though they are just, 1 out of 17, another 1 out of 17. They haven't played since week 1. The Packers smoked them, but just the idea that the Bears, they've kind of come onto the scene a little bit. I think what we can agree on is they're actually kind of relevant, even though they're not going to be a playoff team this year. They're relevant for the future, and they have the number 1 pick and all that. But for them to have the chance to take out the Packers, to go there and keep them out of the playoffs, it is a huge deal for the organization. And they're playing great ball. Last 8 games, they are 6-1-1 against the spread. They've been one of the best defenses. Justin Fields, he's been playing for his career here in Chicago, and he's been playing well of late. And by the way, he's matched up against one of the worst defenses lately, at least over the last month, in the Green Bay Packers. So I think the Bears is the outright that a team that doesn't have motivation that I can see winning.
Singletary for sure, because the Colts don't defend the run very well, and Singletary has been a huge part of this team's success when they've played well. He's rushed for over 100 yards 3 times this year. They've all been since week 10 against Cincinnati. And I mean, Devin Singletary is one of the leading rushers in football since the middle of the season. When he's gone for over 100 yards, the Texans win football games. They're undefeated when he's gone over 100 yards. They're going to do whatever it takes to win this game. And the coaching staff, they may not even know about the incentives or whatever. I'm sure they do, but they're not going to. That's not going to impact anything as far as usage. They are using Devin Singletary like a bell cow right now. So I would take. I actually jotted that down on my notes here. I would take over on whatever the props are for Devin Singletary rushing yards for sure. And as far as Dalton Schultz goes, it's interesting. I don't think they have a choice but to involve Dalton Schultz heavily in the offense because they're so bereft of weapons right now. Not bereft, but they're down weapons right now. I mean, Tank Dell's been out since the Denver game in Week 13. That's really impacted this offense's ability to stretch the field and open things up. And I think they're going to want to continue to have C.J. Stroud get the ball out quickly because he's only a week or 2 removed from a concussion. So they don't want him taking hits, and I think that equates to Dalton Schultz getting the football a decent amount in this game. Look, he's probably their second most effective weapon in the passing game behind Nico Collins. Noah Brown looks like he's going to miss this game. Robert Woods is more there for his veteran savvy than he is to make a bunch of big plays downfield. And the young receivers they have just haven't been able to get out of first gear, John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson. So I think just by necessity, Dalton Schultz is going to have to be a big part of this game plan. So I like overs and big money in their paychecks for both of those guys for sure.